You wake suddenly, not from a dream. You haven't dreamed in weeks. You wake because of the whistle, that same thin, high-pitched blast. It slices through the stillness, then fades, replaced by the silence of men stirring, soft movements, low voices, the rustle of wool and canvas. You blink. Your eyes sting from the smoke of yesterday's brazier fire. The dugout is dim, but not dark. Gray light filters in through the muddy doorway. Morning. You sit up slowly so your back doesn't spasm. Your spine creaks. Your legs are stiff. Your breath fogs the air. The blanket slips off your shoulders, damp again. Not from sweat, but from the trench itself. Water rising up from the earth, condensation dripping from the timber beams. It's always wet. You shift your legs, swinging them over the wooden plank. Below is mud. Dark, soft, ever-hungry mud. It coats the duckboards like oil. One wrong step, and your boot will be half submerged. You reach for your boots. They were never dry. They never will be. You shove your feet in anyway, wincing as the cold wraps around your toes. There's grit inside. You feel it grinding against your skin. You rub your ankles, check your socks. If they're soaked, you'll change them. If you're lucky, there's a dry pair in your kit. If not, you'll massage your feet with whale oil and hope. You stand, your joints cracking like rifle bolts. You bend to pick up your rifle. It lies across 2 ammo crates beside your pack. You check the bolt, slide it back, run a cloth down the barrel. Keep it clean. Always. A rat darts past your boot. It's large, fat. It vanishes into the corner of the dugout where rations used to be stored. Someone mutters a curse behind you. No one tries to chase it. You reach for your water bottle, uncap it. The tin stinks faintly of old tea and rust. You sip. The water is cold, flat, and slightly bitter. But it's water. You stretch your back again and gather your helmet. It's perched atop a splintered wooden post beside your bedroll. The steel feels cold against your fingers. You settle it onto your head. The weight is familiar now. You hardly notice. Outside, the trench waits. You step into the trench line. The boards groan underfoot. A narrow corridor of mud and sandbags stretches out in both directions. The walls sag inward, some places reinforced with timber, others with corrugated iron. The smell hits you again, always the same. Wet earth, old sweat, rotting food, and something else. The unmistakable scent of decay. It lingers in the corners, downwind of the latrines. You pull your scarf up over your mouth. A gesture of habit more than comfort. It does little to help. You walk down the trench. Past sleeping figures still burrowed beneath greatcoats. Past a soldier bent over a mess tin, scraping out the last of last night's stew. Past a latrine bucket covered hastily with a wooden plank. No one says much. The mornings are quiet here, not out of reverence, just fatigue. Up ahead, the corporal's voice breaks the stillness. Stand to, fire step. Let's move. You take your place along the fire step, a foot-high ledge carved into the trench wall, reinforced with planks. You climb onto it, peer just over the parapet. No man's land stretches out before you, a barren expanse of craters and twisted wire. Puddles glisten faintly in the weak morning light. Some look deep. Most smell foul. You lift your periscope and scan the horizon. The German trench is out there, maybe 80 yards away. Low, broken lines of sandbags, dark figures flit between gaps. No shots. Not yet. Your breath fogs the glass. You wipe it with your sleeve. Your gloves are wet again. The wool itches against your skin. You scratch absently. More lice. You can feel them beneath your collar. A constant crawl. To your right, someone mutters a prayer under their breath. To your left, another soldier pulls a cigarette from behind his ear. He lights it, cupping the flame. The tiny orange glow is swallowed by the gray. Somewhere down the line, a kettle clinks on a brazier. A corporal snaps, No smoking during stand 2. The cigarette vanishes. Everyone falls silent again. Above you, the sky is a dull canvas of cloud. No sun, no stars, just endless gray. And then, a flare. It arcs upward from the German line, greenish white. It hisses softly as it climbs, hangs in the air, illuminating the trench like lightning. You freeze. Everyone does. The flare fades. The world darkens again. Nothing moves. After a long moment, the sergeant gives the nod. You climb down from the fire step. Your legs tingle as the blood returns. Stand to complete, someone says. Just loud enough for the men nearby to hear. You breathe. A long, slow exhale. You're still here, still breathing, still whole. Another morning survived, and the day has only just begun. You clamber onto the fire step before full light. It's automatic now. Your body rises even before the order is called. Stand to. The command echoes low through the trench line, passed from section to section. No shouting, no panic, just the grim tone of routine. You adjust your footing. Your boots, soaked from yesterday, squish faintly on the duck boards. You climb the narrow ledge, brace your knees, and settle your rifle across the parapet. To your left, someone grunts as they fumble with their bolt. To your right, a man is already scanning the horizon, eyes hard beneath the rim of his helmet. No one talks. The air doesn't allow it. The light is still weak, that strange gray just before sunrise, when shapes are uncertain and your eyes imagine things that aren't there. No man's land lies still beyond the wire. A vast stretch of filth and scars, littered with old shell craters, wooden boards, scraps of sandbags, and the occasional dark silhouette. You don't stare too long at those. Some are mannequins. Some are not. You check your rifle. Again. Bolt smooth. Barrel clear. Bayonet fixed. You press your fingers along the leather sling, making sure it's secure. Even now, even in quiet, everything must be in its place. This is the worst time. Dawn. The hour of uncertainty. The hour of attack. Every morning, both sides perform the same ritual, stand to, weapons ready, eyes sharp, waiting for movement across the rise. The Germans are probably doing the same right now. You can almost picture them, just like you, tired, cold, waiting. It's not fear anymore. Not exactly. Just readiness. A kind of dull awareness that tightens your shoulders, keeps your finger near the trigger. You rest your weight on your heels. Keep your head low. Glance up over the sandbags. The barbed wire catches the growing light. It glistens with dew. Nothing moves except the wind and the distant echo of a lark somewhere far behind the lines. Time stretches. Minutes blur together. You blink, and half an hour has passed. A corporal steps quietly down the line, checking positions. He nods at you. You nod back. No words. Not needed. Your legs begin to ache. Your toes are numb. You shift slightly, but don't climb down. Not yet. Another 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Then finally, the signal comes. Stand to ends. No alarm. No trumpet. Just a quiet word passed man to man. Down now. Stand to complete. You step off the ledge. Your knees creak as you land. Someone exhales loudly. Relief maybe. But no one says much. You wipe your hands on your trousers, reach into your pocket for your rag. It's stiff with grime and dried oil, but you unfold it and begin to clean your rifle. You start with the bolt, then the receiver. You work the cloth around the trigger guard, then down the length of the barrel. It's a ritual, like brushing your teeth back home, except here, it can save your life. The mud cakes the stock. You scrape it off with the edge of your mess knife. Then rub again with the rag. You'll re-oil it later, if you can spare the oil. Behind you, the line comes to life. The trench hums with the soft sound of men moving, muttering, stretching, clattering tin mugs against ration tins. Someone passes around a latrine can, a battered metal bucket set in a corner of the trench, partially shielded by a tattered canvas flap. You relieve yourself quickly, glancing over your shoulder. There's no privacy here. Not ever. Just enough dignity to look away when someone else uses it. The air near the latrine swarms with flies, even this early. You swat one from your face. Another lands on your sleeve and refuses to leave. The smell is thick, pungent, the kind that never truly fades. Then comes the rum. A small miracle, passed down the line in a dented steel jug, one ladleful each, no more, strictly measured, no seconds. You cup your hands around your tin mug. The rum burns faintly in your nose, a warm sting beneath the damp. You sip slowly, let it rest on your tongue, then swallow. It spreads through you like firewood catching in an empty hearth. Not enough to get drunk, just enough to remember what warmth feels like. Breakfast follows, or something like it. A hard biscuit chipped from a wax paper packet. Brownish, tasteless, more stone than bread. You soften it with a little cold tea, then chew. Next comes the bully beef, a grayish lump pried from a tin with the end of your knife, salty, dense. It clings to your teeth like fat, but it's food. You eat it anyway. Sometimes there's jam, a smear of plum or gooseberry, tinned months ago, tart and oddly sweet. You wipe your fingers on your trousers and drink the last of your tea. It's all cold. Everything's always cold. But the food sits in your gut like a stone, and that's enough. The brazier near the dugout sputters to life. Someone's found some dry sticks. Rare luck. You crowd near the heat for a moment, hands outstretched. Let the warmth touch your palms before the smoke stings your eyes. Then you retreat, check your kit, count your rounds, tighten the straps on your pack. The morning routine continues. Lice check, bootlaces, tin helmet secured, gas mask. Where is it? Ah, there. Still dry, still intact, for now. A private nearby spits into the mud, looks up at the sky, still gray, still overcast. You wonder if today will bring rain, or shells, or both. Someone mutters about a letter from home. Another man asks if there's any word of a mail drop. No one answers. The post is late. It's always late. You sigh through your nose, adjust your rifle sling, and begin the slow walk back down the trench. You have your orders. Trench maintenance. Patrol later. Maybe a wiring party. Maybe fatigue duty. It doesn't matter. The morning is behind you now, and you've made it through another stand too. No shots. No sirens. No screams. Just a biscuit. A slug of rum. And the sound of boots sloshing quietly through mud. You're assigned 2 hours on sentry duty. You don't groan. You don't flinch. You just nod and prepare. Orders are orders. You sling your rifle over your shoulder and check your kit again. Bayonet fixed. Whistle at your chest. Gas mask hung in its satchel within reach. Everything where it must be. Everything where it always is. The corporal gestures to the position. A narrow fire bay flanked by reinforced sandbags with a periscope fixed to a splintered timber pole. You step up carefully, boots squelching on the duckboards. The ground beneath is soft, but the step holds. You position yourself at the scope, resting your hands on the cold, wet wood. You lift the twin mirrors and peer into the gloom beyond the parapet. No man's land unfolds slowly in the mirrored glass. You move the periscope in small arcs, left, then right, then back again, not too quickly. No jerking. Your job isn't to rush. Your job is to see. The land ahead is still, but never empty. A tangle of barbed wire coils just beyond your trench, thick and rusted, hung with cloth scraps and the broken remains of flare sticks. It stretches across the field like a fisherman's net meant not to catch, but to trap. Beyond that, shell craters. Dark pits gouged from the earth like open mouths, some filled with water, stagnant, almost green. Others are dry and crumbling, lined with splinters of wood and old boots. The mud is churned so deep it no longer looks like soil, more like paste, a wet skin stretched across broken bones. You keep scanning, you've been trained for this. Look for contrast, unnatural shapes, straight lines, movement in shadow. One of the craters ahead, about 40 yards out, is deeper than the others. You remember that one. It's where a German patrol was spotted 2 nights ago. Their helmets just barely visible before they vanished. You make a mental note, recheck it every minute, memorize the silhouette. There's a tree out there, or what's left of one. It leans sideways like a dying man, its limbs shattered by artillery. The bark is scorched black, as if it were struck by lightning. Crows roost there sometimes, but not now. Not while it's quiet. You turn the scope to the right. Just at the edge of view is a slight mound, an old trench lip perhaps. But it could be more. A sniper's nest, or the roof of a hidden dugout. You log it in your mind. You'll mention it when your shift ends. Everything out there matters, because everything out there can kill you. And the enemy is close, sometimes within 70 yards. Just a few seconds of running. Just a handful of breaths. You can't hear them, but you know they're watching too. Somewhere beyond your reach, somewhere in the same cold air. You lower the periscope for a moment, let your eyes rest, breathe slowly. The trench around you is mostly quiet. One soldier is digging mud out from under a firing step. Another tightens the guy lines on a camouflage tarpaulin. But no one talks loud. Not while a sentry's on. You flex your fingers. The joints are stiff. You slide one hand under your armpit for warmth, then the other. Then return to the scope. Again, left to right. Back again. Repeat. You begin to memorize the terrain, the way each crater curves, the dip in the land where a drainage ditch used to be, the route your trench mates must take if the whistle blows, where they'll climb the parapet, where they'll drop if the machine guns open up, where you'll go. You mark a line in your mind from the parapet to the far crater to the rise beyond the wire. If it comes to that, if the signal comes, you hope it doesn't. You always hope it doesn't. Minutes pass, then more. Time flattens. You lose count. You listen instead. The sound of distant rifle fire, sporadic, far off. The groan of timber shifting in the trench wall. The wind rustling across the lip of the parapet, carrying the scent of old cordite and something bitter, maybe chlorine, maybe just latrine fumes carried on damp air. A fly lands on the side of your face. You brush it away without flinching. Another lands on your helmet. It stays. You let it. You shift your footing, not too much, just enough to get the blood moving again. You think of nothing, or you try to. Your mind floats to places behind the lines, canteen tents, dry socks, a letter you never answered. Then back again. Always back. To the glass. To the mirrored view of mud and silence. You raise the scope again. A bird. Small. Wings twitching through the low light. It skims the top of a crater and disappears. You exhale. Still nothing human. Still no movement that matters. At last, footsteps. Soft but heavy. A pair of boots approach from behind. Time's up, the private says. Quiet. Respectful. You nod. Lower the scope. Stretch your back. Slide your rifle back into your arms. You say nothing. Just climb down from the fire step. Shoulders tight, legs stiff. Another man replaces you. He takes the same stance. The same scope. The same job. You walk past him without a word. 2 hours done. No shots. No shells. No alarms. But not easy. Never easy. Sentry duty is not for the tired or the distracted. It is for the alert, the silent, the watchful. You return to your post down the line, slide back into the rhythm of trench life. Your hands are still cold. Your eyes still sting. But you were watching. You did your part. And for now, the line still holds. The corporal's voice cuts through the still, damp air. Drainage detail. That's your task today. You don't groan, though every muscle aches from the sentry shift. You just nod, sling your rifle onto a peg, and retrieve your entrenching tool, a small folding shovel with rust caked into the joints. It's cold to the touch, even through your gloves. One hinge sticks, so you kick it open with your boot heel and head to the low section of the trench. It's always the same, always flooding, always thick with sludge that clings to your boots like glue. You step carefully onto the sagging duckboards. They creak underfoot, slippery with algae and old rot. Beneath them, black water, several inches deep, opaque and stinking. You kneel down beside it, lower your shovel into the muck, and begin to scoop. The motion is slow, heavy. Each lift of sludge weighs like a brick, sliding off the blade with a sickening slurp. You toss the muck over the side of the trench, where it lands with a dull splat against the revetment. Around you, the line is buzzing with quiet work. Two men to your left are repairing sandbags. They sit half sunken in the wall, their hands stained with earth, pulling apart old canvas and refilling it with drier soil from a nearby drum. They work quickly, automatically, then pass the bags to another soldier who lays them along the parapet. There are gaps in the wall, places where rain and shell fire have collapsed the trench inward. Those holes must be patched, the parapet reinforced. If not, the next storm or mortar barrage could bury you alive. Further down, a fatigue party hauls up food crates from the communication trench. Two men strain under the weight of a wooden box marked biscuits, hardtack, 1915. Another man follows with a jerrycan of drinking water, sloshing and dented. He stumbles on a loose plank, curses under his breath, then keeps going. It's not glamorous, none of it is, but it's necessary, vital even. The trench lives and dies by maintenance. Without constant labor, it collapses into a grave. You return to your digging. More muck, more water. You shift your weight, trying not to sink too deep. But the ooze rises anyway, creeping into your boots, soaking through your socks. It's cold. So cold it stings. But worse than that is the smell. Rot, dung, old blood. A chemical taint that clings to your tongue and doesn't leave, even when you breathe through your mouth. Somewhere near the latrine section, the stench thickens. You glance that way. The makeshift toilets are overflowing. Just open cans and shallow pits shielded by rotting canvas. A couple of men are trying to dig a new one. Their shovels strike something solid. You hope it's just rock, but you know it might not be. You've found things buried before. Hands, boot soles. A human jaw once, bleached white and grinning from a collapsed wall. The trench has layers, like a graveyard made in haste and reused again and again. You keep shoveling. Your hands blister under the wet canvas of your gloves. You stop briefly to stretch your back, and a chill creeps in between your shoulder blades. Then back to work. The corporal passes by, checking your progress. He doesn't say anything, just grunts and moves on. That's praise, in its own way. Down the trench, you hear the splintering crack of timber. Someone shouts for help. A dugout has partially collapsed. You leave your shovel stuck in the muck and clamber down the trench to see. A few men are already there, digging into a half-buried doorway. The support beam had rotted through, and part of the roof has caved in. Luckily, no one was inside, but the smell wafting from the debris is unmistakable. Earth, wet cloth, and something worse. They pull free a bundle of sandbags, then a boot. No foot inside. You swallow hard and turn back to your post. You return to your shovel. The duckboards are clearer now. The water level has dropped slightly, just enough to expose a few cracked planks. You shift one aside and use your tool to dig a shallow channel, guiding the water toward a sump pit near the latrines. The sump pit is full of leeches and wriggling things. You ignore them. You wipe sweat from your brow, even though it's cold. Your uniform sticks to your back with dampness. Your breath fogs in the air. One of the men repairing the parapet starts humming an old hymn. Something from childhood, you think. You know the tune, but can't place the words. It drifts for a while, then fades. Another shell hole along the parapet needs to be filled. You join a pair of others to carry fresh sandbags from the reserve line. Each bag weighs more than it should, wet, packed tight. You stack them two at a time, shoulders burning, until the wall looks solid again. Not pretty, but strong. In the far corner of the trench, a rat darts out from beneath a plank. It's huge, nearly the size of a cat, and bold. It stares at you before vanishing into a crack in the wall. No one bothers to chase them anymore. There are too many, and they always come back. Someone lights a cigarette. The match flares, briefly illuminating his face. He offers the smoke around. You decline. Your hands are too filthy to touch anything you'll put in your mouth. You return to the duckboards. Lift the last few planks. Scrape the remaining sludge into a corner. Your hands are raw now, tiny blisters forming along your knuckles. Your palms sting when you close them. You hear footsteps overhead. A runner, maybe, crossing the duckboards above a traverse. He's shouting something. Maybe a message. You can't make it out. Behind you, a kettle hisses faintly on a brazier. Tea, probably. Maybe you'll get some, maybe not. But the trench looks better. Not clean, not dry, never dry. But it holds its shape. It resists collapse. It will last the day. You stand up slowly. Your back pops. Your knees ache. You take a moment to stretch, then turn toward the next task. There's always a next task. Always another wall to patch. Another drain to clear. Another stretch of wire to mend. Another body to carry. If not today, then tomorrow. This is the work of trench life. Not battle, not heroism, just mud and wood and rot and grit. You hear the approach long before you see it, the muffled thump of boots on duckboards, the rasp of breath, the soft clatter of something heavy shifting inside canvas. It's the mail runner. A subtle shift passes down the trench. No calls, no questions, no smiles. Just a flicker of tension, an upward glance, the pause of hands that have been shoveling, scraping, or winding cloth around sore feet. Every man knows what the sack might hold. When the runner rounds the corner, his face is red with cold and effort. One arm hugs the satchel tight across his chest, a stained mass of khaki canvas slicked with soot and dried mud. The mouth of the bag is bound with thick twine, knotted once, then again, as if to keep something sacred sealed within. He doesn't speak much, just a brief nod to the corporal, then drops to a crouch and begins pulling envelopes from the sack. Some are thick with folded pages, others are so light they flutter like leaves in his fingers. He squints at the handwriting, the loops and flourishes of 1,000 different hands that haven't touched a rifle, that don't know the feel of duckboard rot underfoot, that don't reek of cordite and sweat. He reads the names aloud, flat and without ceremony. There's no time for emotion, not with mud thickening around boots and the threat of artillery always just out of earshot. One letter is taken with a grunt and a nod, another with a sharp intake of breath. Some soldiers turn their backs quickly, opening their envelopes with trembling fingers as if tearing open a wound. One letter is read out, but no one responds. A pause. Then someone mutters, almost absently, "Gone west." The runner hesitates. His hand closes around the envelope once more, then he slips it back into the bag. There will be no forwarding address. Eventually, your name is spoken. You reach up. The envelope lands in your hand, almost weightless. It's thin, creased, a little damp at the corners. The ink has run in places, a brush of water or sweat or just the constant damp of the trench. You recognize the handwriting instantly. Even before the letters form your name, you see the careful slope of the script, the practiced symmetry, as though the writer took twice as long just to get every line straight. The address is vague. Only a town scribbled in one corner, but it doesn't matter. You would know that hand anywhere. You tuck the envelope into your greatcoat until the corporal gives a nod. When you're waved off, you find a pocket of relative quiet in the trench. Not solitude, but at least space. A dugout lined with splintered boards and a rotting sandbag for a bench. You sit. Your fingers are stiff. You fumble a little, then ease the paper free. 2 pages. One still faintly scented. Smoke, maybe, or lavender. A ghost of something clean. You read the salutation slowly. Dearest. Always that. Then you move through the words one by one. She writes about flour being rationed now, about shops closing early to save coal. She says the tea tastes like boiled hay, but no one complains. She mentions someone at home coughing again. She says the town bells ring less often now. Not from joy, only for funerals. The next line stops you. Someone you knew is dead. Shell fire. No remains. A name added to a plaque somewhere, maybe under an iron cross or behind a glass case. She doesn't write it dramatically, just enough to tell you the shape of it, as if any more would break something between you both. You stare at the line, let it sink, then move on. She mentions a rumor that the war will be over by December, but even she doesn't believe it. Neither do you. Not anymore. At the bottom of the second page, she writes, "We miss you. Please write, even if it's only a sentence, just so we know you're still there." You read it again, then again. The cold numbs your fingers, but you hold the paper carefully, as if it might vanish if your grip slips. The smell on the paper is faint, but it cuts through the rot of the trench for a moment, just long enough to conjure the warmth of a room with thick curtains and a burning stove, the hiss of a kettle, a chair worn smooth from generations of sitting. You blink, and it's gone. The smell of wet canvas and latrines returns, the scratching sound of lice beneath your collar, the stale stink of your own body beneath soaked wool. Still, the letter is real. Real in a way the mud and misery sometimes aren't. You fold it slowly, slide it into the inside pocket of your tunic, next to others, all creased, some stained, one burnt at the corner from a flare that landed too close. They are your private archive, proof that you existed before this place and maybe will again. Around you, others are reading. Some hold their letters in both hands like holy things. One stares blankly at the envelope, unopened. Another has already torn his up and burns the pieces one by one with a match. A few don't receive anything. They look down when the runner leaves, then rise wordlessly and get back to whatever work awaits, hauling, digging, repairing wire. You watch the way their eyes darken, not with rage, but with something harder to name. You know that look. You've worn it before. You might wear it again. Mail comes when it comes. It is irregular, unpredictable, maddening. Sometimes a flood, sometimes a drought. Sometimes you get the letter months too late. Sometimes it arrives the day after you've buried the sender in your thoughts. But when it does come, it is salvation. More than food, more than cigarettes, more than warm socks or rest. It is a tether to the world beyond this frozen slit in the earth. It tells you you're still more than a uniform, more than a rifle number, more than meat to be thrown into mud. A letter says someone remembers. And that is everything. You rise, shake out your legs, slide the letter deeper into your pocket, press flat over your heart. The sky is still gray, the trench hasn't changed, but something inside you has settled. For now, it is enough. You sit down on a wooden crate. It is rough and splintered under your weight, cold to the touch. You shift your weight slightly, trying to find a comfortable position. Your coat is damp from the morning's drizzle. Your boots are heavy, soaked through with mud and water. You pull your hands out of your pockets. They are numb from the cold. You reach inside your tunic pocket. Your fingers brush against a small, crumpled pack of cigarettes. Woodbines. Thin, harsh-smelling cigarettes issued to soldiers. You carefully remove one. It's crushed slightly at the edges. You hold it between your fingers. Your hands are rough, stained with dirt and grease. You flick a match with a practiced thumb. The flame flares up, flickering in the chill air. You cup your hand around it. You bring the cigarette to your lips. The paper catches fire quickly. You draw in a slow, steady breath. The smoke fills your lungs. It burns a little, harsh and biting, but it steadies your nerves. You let the smoke curl out gently. It drifts upward, disappearing into the gray sky. Time stretches out, slow, dragging. The minutes seem endless. Around you, the trench lies quiet. A low murmur of voices fills the air. Soft footsteps on wooden duckboards. The scrape of tools against earth and wood. Somewhere nearby, a pencil scratches on paper. You glance toward the sound. A soldier sits hunched, writing in a diary. His face is tired. His hands are stained with mud and sweat. The diary is small, worn at the edges. He writes slowly. His words curl carefully across the page. That private moment is a fragile comfort. Not far away, two men play cards. They sit close together. Their laughter is low and nervous. They speak in whispers. The deck is old. Cards bent and worn from constant use. They shuffle and deal with care. The card game is a distraction, a way to pass the long hours. You watch their fingers flick the cards. It's a small pleasure. You speak softly with a comrade nearby. The words are low, measured. You share rumors that drift through the trench like the cold wind. One speaks of an offensive, a big push, a chance to break the stalemate. But the thought brings no comfort. You hear others talking about new gas masks, lighter, more breathable. A small mercy in this deadly war. You nod slowly. The war is never far away. You listen. Suddenly, a shell whistles overhead. The sound is sharp, eerie, high-pitched and piercing. You look up instinctively. The shell passes over, far enough not to strike. The explosion comes behind the lines. A dull boom rumbles across the trench. A plume of black smoke rises slowly. No alarms sound. No rush for cover. The men barely move. It is just another crater. Another mark on the scarred earth. You shift your weight again. Your boots are soaked through. Mud squelches beneath your feet. You remove one boot carefully. Peel back your thick sock. Your toes are pale, swollen slightly, cold and numb. You begin to massage them gently. Slow movements, pressing and rolling each toe, trying to bring back warmth and feeling. You know the dangers of trench foot. It can lead to infection, loss of toes, even amputation. You keep moving your toes, wiggling them inside your sock, sliding your foot back into the boot. The leather is stiff and heavy. You stretch your legs, muscles aching from sitting too long. The trench smells of earth and decay. Rotting wood and wet cloth. Sweat and smoke mingle in the air. A faint smell of death lingers nearby. You breathe deeply. This is the trench, your world now. Around you, men move slowly. Some clean rifles. Others patch sandbags. Small, endless chores. Some stare into the distance, lost in their own thoughts. You join the rhythm. The endless waiting. Time passes slowly. The sun hides behind thick clouds. The chill deepens. Damp seeps into every layer of clothing. You pull your coat tighter. The cold gnaws at your skin. You close your eyes briefly. Let your mind drift away. You think of home, warm fires and soft beds, the laughter of friends and family. But the trench pulls you back. Every sound, every shadow keeps you alert. The boredom is heavy, but danger lurks always nearby. You sit back down on the crate, reach for the cigarette pack again, pull out another woodbine, light it slowly. The smoke rises in thin tendrils, a small thread of calm. You watch it curl upward. Let the quiet wash over you. Waiting defines the war. Waiting and watching. Patient endurance. The trench seems to hold its breath, and you wait with it. The hours stretch like an ocean, empty and vast. Yet every moment is charged. Tensa, poised on a knife edge. You check your rifle. The metal cold and greasy in your hands. Every part polished and oiled. Ready for action. You test the safety catch. Slide the bolt back. Listen to the click. The weapon is your lifeline. You cannot let your guard down. Even now. A faint breeze carries distant sounds. Birds? No. Shell bursts. Far away but constant. The earth shakes softly. You breathe in the heavy air. Feel the weight of silence. The endless waiting. You remind yourself, patience is survival. Strength is endurance. The war will not be won in a day. Not in this trench. Only the small moments count. A cigarette shared. A card played. A letter remembered. You close your eyes again. Let the trench fade a little. Let sleep come softly. For now, you are safe. Safe enough to rest. The trench lies quiet for a moment. The usual low murmurs of men moving about reach your ears. A faint scrape of boots on the wooden duckboards. Soft voices. The occasional clink of equipment. Then, without any warning, the ground beneath you shudders. A sharp, terrible roar fills the air. The earth explodes close by. You feel the shockwave roll through your body. Chunks of earth, clods of wet mud, and splinters of wood shower down over you. Cold, heavy lumps thud against your helmet and shoulders. Your chest tightens. Your breath hitches. The trench shakes violently. You duck instinctively, pressing your head low. Your heart pounds hard in your ears. The roar of the explosion and the smell of cordite fill your senses. The air tastes thick and bitter. Dust and smoke billow around you. For a moment, all is chaos. Men shout, some scramble for cover. You wait, muscles coiled like a spring. The noise slowly fades. You straighten cautiously. Mud drips from your coat sleeves. The trench is torn where the shell struck. A sandbag wall lies in ruins, spilling damp earth onto the duckboards. The smell of wet soil and burning powder hangs thick. You brush mud from your sleeve with a trembling hand. Then, a few minutes later, another shell whistles through the air, landing farther down the line. Its shrill cry pierces the gray sky. You hear the deep boom of its explosion. The trench shakes again. Shrapnel whistles past with a terrifying hiss. You throw yourself flat. Metal shards buzz dangerously close. The stench of burning metal and earth fills your nostrils. A sharp, agonized scream cuts through the noise. It echoes off the trench walls. You glance toward the sound. A stretcher party rushes past, moving fast but carefully. 2 men stagger beneath the weight. They carry what remains of a soldier's leg, torn and mangled beyond recognition. Blood seeps through the rough bandages. The soldier's face is pale and drawn. His eyes are closed, breath ragged and shallow. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach. The harsh reality of war lies bare. No heroic glory, Only pain, suffering, and loss. The stretcher party disappears into the communication trench. The trench falls into a heavy silence again, but the tension thickens. You crouch lower. Press your back against the damp earth wall. The trench rises steeply on all sides. Sandbags, earth, timber stacked haphazardly. Your palms feel the rough wood, soaked with rain and sweat. This wall is your shield, but only just. You know the protection is fragile, temporary. A thin barrier against the constant threat of death. Suddenly, a sharp, precise crack rips through the air. A rifle shot. The unmistakable whistle of a sniper's bullet. It passes just inches from your head. You flinch, heart leaping. Adrenaline floods through you. Your ears ring. You press yourself even flatter against the trench wall. Mescal toe. Every nerve alert. Your eyes dart toward the parapet. The open ground beyond is a deadly no man's land. Barbed wire snarled and torn. Shell-cratered earth filled with stagnant, murky water. Every shadow, every ridge could hide an enemy rifleman. You remind yourself the sniper waits. Silent, patient, invisibly, deadly. You grip your rifle tightly, fingers numb but steady. Your breath slow and controlled. You scan the barren landscape, looking for any sign of movement, a glint of metal, a flicker of shadow, but the enemy remains unseen. Minutes stretch long. Each second feels like a lifetime. You check your ammunition, count the bullets in your magazine. Every shot is precious. You cannot waste even one. Suddenly, a distant whistle pierces the air. A warning sound. More shells are incoming. You duck instinctively. The earth shudders again. The trench is pounded relentlessly. Mud sloshes beneath your boots. The noise is overwhelming. Your ears ring from the explosions. You cover your head with your arms. The world narrows to a tunnel of sound and shaking. When the pounding finally ceases, silence returns. Heavy and thick. You open your eyes slowly. The trench is scarred anew. Sandbags ripped apart. Wood splintered and scattered. Men move carefully, stepping around debris. You look at your trembling hands. You breathe deeply, steadying yourself. War is chaos, but calm must be maintained. You rise slowly. Your boots sink into the wet mud. You move to check on a comrade nearby. He nods grimly, face smeared with dirt and sweat, eyes tired but watchful. No words are needed. This is the unspoken bond of survival. Suddenly, a small movement catches your eye. A rat scurries across the duckboards, unfazed by the shelling and death. Life stubbornly continues. You find a strange comfort in the rat's fearless dash. The trench is your entire world now, a fragile fortress against the constant threat of death. You know the dangers well. Shells, snipers, poison gas. Yet here you stay, because there is no other place to be. You lower yourself again, find a place to rest briefly, muscles aching, skin slick with mud and sweat. The cold seeps back in. You pull your coat tight around you. Close your eyes. Let the sounds wash over you. The distant rumbles, the sharp cracks of gunfire, the quiet murmurs of men. War is endless waiting, broken only by moments of terror. You remind yourself, stay alert, stay alive. The trench walls rise all around you, a hollow fortress. It will not keep you safe, but it will hold you, for now. And so you wait. As dusk begins to creep over the trench, you gather with the others, clutching your battered mess tin. The sky above shifts from pale gray to a muted wash of blues and purples. The air cools slightly, carrying a damp chill that seeps into your bones. The cook is already waiting near the dugout entrance. His face is smeared with soot and sweat, eyes tired but steady. You step forward slowly, waiting your turn. The ladle clinks against the tin. Thick stew sloshes out, a murky brown broth, heavy with the smell of earth and something vaguely sour. You recognize the pieces, mostly turnips, limp and gray. Mixed with them, faint bits of gristle, barely discernible but definitely there. The stew is lukewarm, more comforting in its heat than its taste. You lower the mess tin, clutching it close to your chest. Around you, others eat in silence. The only sounds the occasional scrape of spoons against metal. You tear off a piece of stale bread. It's hard, almost like a cracker, crumbs breaking away with each bite. You chew slowly, letting the dryness settle in your mouth. There's tea too, handed out in chipped enamel cups. It's thin and bitter, barely more than hot water with a faint trace of leaves. But it warms your throat, spreading a small comfort. You eat quickly, knowing the moments are precious. The trench offers no luxury, no time for dawdling. Eyes occasionally flick to the far parapet. Shadows lengthen and twist. The horizon darkens. The distant German trenches are little more than a line of shadows, but you know what lies beyond. Soon, the call comes for stand to. You move with the others toward the fire step. Your boots clunk softly on the wooden duckboards. The mud clings to your soles, heavy and cold. You climb carefully, hands gripping the rough timber. At the top, the trench narrows sharply. You settle into position, rifle in hand, bayonet fixed. Your fingers tighten around the cold metal. The weight is familiar, a steady presence in the growing dark. You peer out, eyes straining to catch any movement. The world is quieter now, the daytime bustle fading away. The wind rustles faintly through barbed wire and broken branches. Your breath forms a mist in the cool air. A flare suddenly bursts overhead in the enemy lines. It blooms like a pale flower of light, illuminating the no man's land in stark detail. You see the twisted barbed wire, the churned earth of shell craters, the blackened, leafless trees standing as silent witnesses. For a brief moment, the entire enemy line glows, stark and exposed. You hold your breath, waiting. No movement follows. No attack comes. The flare fades, swallowed by the night. You exhale slowly. Around you, others remain tense but silent. The dark stretches endlessly, broken only by the faint outlines of the trench and the flickering flare light far away. You feel the weight of the long night ahead. No one speaks. Only the occasional shifting of gear. The distant sounds of men talking quietly. Perhaps a cough or a quiet scrape of metal. You focus on the rhythm of your breathing, the cold air filling your lungs, the feel of your rifle in your hands. Time seems to stretch, slow. The war is defined by these moments, waiting and watching. The threat always present but unseen. You remain alert, senses sharpened. Your ears catch every faint noise. The creak of wood, the rustle of cloth, the distant crack of a branch underfoot. Your eyes scan the darkness, searching for any sign. The trench feels like a fragile barrier between you and the endless danger beyond. You think of home, warm fires, soft beds, the quiet of night. The contrast is sharp. Here, the night is filled with waiting and the threat of sudden violence. You remind yourself to stay calm, to keep steady. Your thoughts wander to your mess tin, now empty. The stew was meager, but it gave some strength. The bread, though hard and stale, filled the emptiness in your stomach. The tea, thin as it was, warmed your insides. Small comforts in a harsh world. Around you, men shift to relieve cramps. Some quietly smoke, the faint scent of tobacco mixing with the damp earth. You resist the urge to fidget. Every movement is careful. Every sound must be controlled. A sudden noise could bring danger. A stray step, a whispered word, a cough. You watch the horizon carefully. The flare light has faded, but your eyes remain alert. You see the faint glow of lamps in the rear trenches. Your mind drifts back to the mail call earlier in the day. The letters, the brief connection to another life. You tuck those thoughts away. Focus on the present. The night will be long. The cold will seep deeper. The mud will cling tighter. But you will endure. Because you must. Because there is no other choice. The trench is both prison and protector. Your world compressed to this narrow, muddy line. You glance at your comrades. Some stare ahead with blank eyes. Others talk quietly in low tones. A faint camaraderie in the shared hardship. The distant rumble of artillery fades into the night. For now, the war never truly stops. It waits. Watching. You grip your rifle tighter. Feel the familiar weight of steel and wood. The bayonet gleams faintly in the twilight. You fix your gaze on the horizon once more. The German line remains silent. The flare glow is gone. No attack comes. Just the long dark stretch of the night ahead. And you wait. The corporal taps your shoulder. Night patrol. The words hang heavy in the cold, still air, louder than they should be. They slice through the quiet like bayonets. There's no hesitation. There never is. You nod and rise, slowly, carefully. Movements become rituals out here, not because of superstition, but because ritual means survival. The others watch silently as you ready yourself. Some glance, some stare. No one speaks. They've all taken this walk. They all know. The night feels darker than usual. Heavy clouds blot out the stars, smothering what little comfort the heavens might have offered. Only the faintest glimmers of lantern light and smoldering cigarette ends from the rear trenches outline the horizon like a ghost town, flickering, forgotten. You check your rifle with practiced hands, magazine secure, chamber clear, bayonet fixed. The metal is cold, almost cruel, biting through the thin gloves that are more whole than fabric now. You adjust your helmet. You don't remember the last time it sat straight. Tonight, you make sure it does. Every strap, every buckle, every pocket, every pouch, tightened, tested, confirmed. Because mistakes don't get second chances. You climb over the parapet, moving like smoke, silent and low. The sudden drop into the mud below makes your stomach lurch despite how many times you've done it. You feel the familiar pull of gravity and memory. The trench walls loom behind you, protective yet confining, like arms you must leave to face the storm. You drop to your belly in the muck. It accepts you without ceremony. The earth is soft, sodden from 2 days of rain that still lingers in the air, thick and metallic. Your uniform drinks it all in. You'll never be dry again. You stopped hoping for that weeks ago. You move forward on your elbows and knees, slow and deliberate. Each inch is earned. Each movement has meaning. Ahead. No man's land. It stretches endlessly, a barren graveyard of iron and ash. There are no markers here, no tombstones, just the silence of things that once lived. The smell hits you again, earth and decay. A damp rot mixed with the phantom scent of smoke and powder. The war has its own perfume, and you wear it whether you want to or not. Your fingers slide across the ground. The texture shifts. Mud gives way to splintered wood, metal shards, bones. Crater lips rise and fall like the edges of some godless mouth. Barbed wire snakes in all directions, catching on fabric and thought alike. It glints faintly, like it knows it's being watched. You press your cheek to the ground. It's slick, cold, unwelcoming. Your breath fogs sideways, barely visible. The darkness is near total now, but your eyes adapt. Shadows take shape. Silhouettes move without moving. A ruined tree, a discarded pack, a helmet lying far from its owner. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. You've heard it before. Strange how such a peaceful sound can feel so haunting here. Even the animals seem out of place. Then, whoosh, pop, a flare explodes above the enemy lines. The night goes white. For a moment, the world is crystal clear, too clear. Every contour of the earth, every jagged edge of barbed wire, every crater, every broken thing, bathed in pale, hostile light. You freeze. Every muscle stiffens, every breath halts. You are a painting mid-stroke. For seconds that stretch like hours, you imagine a dozen rifle barrels aimed squarely at your ribs. But no shot comes. The flare sputters out, and darkness crashes back like a wave. You stay still, long enough to convince yourself you're invisible again. Only then do you start to breathe. The night resumes its terrible rhythm. Rats skitter nearby. You feel one brush your ankle. You don't flinch. You stopped flinching weeks ago too. You push forward again, even slower now. One arm, one leg. Repeat. The mud grips you like a drowning man. Your limbs are numb, your joints ache. The cold is no longer an enemy. It's simply a companion now. You reach the wire line, your objective. It snarls in front of you like a beast mid-roar. Rust clings to every twisted strand. You reach into your pocket, fingers closing around the wire cutters. Old friends. You work quickly, quietly. The cutters bite. The wire gives. Snap. A noise too loud. You wince, freezing again. Nothing. No movement. No shout. You continue. Carefully, reverently, you pull the wires apart just enough. You plant the listening device, nothing more than a small wooden box and some crude ingenuity. You press it down into the earth and debris, like laying the seed in poisoned soil. Then you wait, listening. Silence. Then wind. Then whispers. Then silence again. You hear something. A faint scrape maybe. Could be a patrol. Could be a rat. Could be nothing. You begin your crawl back. Retreats are different. They carry relief, but also regret. You're no longer moving into danger. You're moving away from it. And that feels wrong. The journey drags. Every crater feels deeper. Every branch sharper. Every heartbeat louder. Something rustles to your left. You stop. Then nothing. You move again. Eventually, finally, the faint lights of your own trench come into view. You pause, scanning, then slip back over the parapet like a shadow returning to its source. The trench welcomes you with silence. You collapse onto the duckboards, boots squelching, breath ragged. Your hands are trembling. You look down. Mud up to your elbows, grime under every nail. The corporal approaches. He doesn't speak, just nods. You nod back. That's all that needs saying. You slump onto an overturned crate. It creaks but holds. The others say nothing. One offers you a biscuit. You take it. It tastes like cardboard, but it's something. You scrape dried mud from your trousers. It flakes off like old bark. Your body hurts in places you didn't know could hurt. You're supposed to rest now. The others are already lying down, heads against rolled coats or ammo boxes. One man hums softly, a tune you haven't heard since before the war. But your eyes don't want to close. You sit there breathing. The sky is still black, but lighter at the edges. Dawn isn't far. You look down at your hands. Cuts, bruises, dried blood. Then you look up at the night. You feel it watching you back. The fear is still there, coiled like a wire deep in your chest. Sleep won't come easily tonight. And maybe that's all right. You're not ready to sleep. Not yet. You need to sit a little longer, to feel the wood under you, to hear the slow drip of water from somewhere overhead, to let your heart beat slow. You won't dream of flares or wire if you don't close your eyes. So you stay seated, not asleep, just ending the day, and sometimes that's enough. You slip back into the narrow entrance of your dugout. The trench above is quiet now, but the silence feels heavy, like a lid pressed over the earth. Not peace, but the pause between breaths. The dugout is a cramped, timbered hole carved deep into the wall of the trench, more of a coffin than a room. It's dark, close, and damp. The kind of place that feels like it's waiting to collapse. You lower yourself down the uneven steps carefully, feeling for each one with a boot that no longer bends properly from layers of dried muck. Every movement is practiced, quiet, reverent. You do not want to wake anyone who's managed to drift off. Inside, the air is stale and sour, thick, with the smell of damp earth, unwashed bodies, burned wax, and old straw. Somewhere beneath it all lingers the smell of mildew and mold, soaked into the timber like rotten a wound. The walls are lined with warped planks, some split, some bowed from months of rain and shell shock. Bullet holes and shrapnel scars mark the ceiling above like constellations, crude stars in the wood. Your boots squelch with every step. You crouch low and begin to untie the laces with aching fingers. The knots are stiff and reluctant, caked with hardened mud from the patrol. Your breath fogs slightly in the air as you work. Finally, the boots come off. You set them aside, soles up so they might dry, though they never truly do. Your feet are pale, bloated from hours spent crawling and standing in wet ground. Each toe aches, raw and tender. The sensation borders on pain, but you welcome it. Pain means you still feel. From your pack, you pull out a battered tin of whale oil. It's dented and rust-flecked. You twist the lid free and the fishy, acrid smell wafts up. To anyone else, it might be repulsive. To you, it smells like safety. You rub the oil into your feet slowly, deliberately. It's a ritual now, part habit, part hope. Your thumbs press into the arches and heels, trying to keep the blood moving. Trench foot is always lurking, always hungry. This simple act of care is your quiet resistance. The oil glistens against your skin in the candlelight. You wipe your hands on a rag and tuck the tin away again. The others are asleep, or pretending to be. One man shifts in his corner, mumbling something in his dreams. Another snores softly. Their shapes are just outlines in the dimness, draped in blankets and coats. You recognize them by the rhythm of their breathing. You lower yourself onto your sack, straw-filled, flattened with time, and stinking of mildew and old sweat. It's a poor bed, but it's yours. The straw crunches beneath you. Some of it sticks through the sackcloth, jabbing your back and legs, but you don't adjust. You're too used to discomfort to bother. The candle stub beside you is burning low, casting an amber glow against the wooden walls. It dances with the flicker of air from the tunnel, casting long shadows that seem to sway with invisible figures. You reach into your tunic and pull out a small black-bound diary. The edges are smudged with grime, the spine fraying. You keep it tucked close at all times, like a relic. You dip your pen into the ink bottle, careful not to spill. The ink is cold and sluggish, but it flows. You begin to write. The words come slowly. Patrolled no man's land again tonight. Cut the wire. Planted the device. Flare went up. Nearly caught. Made it back. A few lines. Nothing poetic. Just facts. But they are yours. You write them because they are the only thing that feels real. The page soaks in your thoughts. You wonder who will read them if you don't make it back one day. You wonder if anyone will care. Outside, the trench settles. The rats are back, scampering along the dugout beams. You see their eyes in the candlelight, glassy and bold. One drops down, lands near your sack, and sniffs at your pack. You swat at it lazily. It scatters, then returns to the shadows. You no longer bother to chase them far. They are part of the trench, just like you. A shell thuds far behind the lines, not close. Not urgent, but it reminds you the war does not sleep. The tremor rolls through the earth and settles in your chest. You feel it more than hear it. You close your eyes for a moment. But the moment is loud. Your mind replays the flare, how the world froze in that pale white light, how the wire gleamed, how your body refused to move, even your lungs. You remember the face of a boy you passed on your way back to the trench. He was sleeping against the wall, mouth slightly open. He looked peaceful in a way that felt out of place here. You wonder if he dreamed. Your eyes open again. The candle flickers low now. You lean your head back against the plank wall, feeling the hardness of it press into your skull. You are tired, but not ready to sleep. Your muscles ache and your bones feel older than they should. But your thoughts keep turning. You think of home, of your mother's kitchen, of the yellow curtains fluttering in the wind, of the sound of the river near your old house, the way your boots used to dry by the fire. You cling to these images, not out of longing, but out of survival. You must remember who you were before this. Otherwise, you fear you'll become nothing but the war. The candle sputters. You close your diary and slip it away. The light dies, leaving only a faint glow from the trench outside. You lie back on the straw, but your eyes do not close. Instead, you breathe. You listen to the soft snores, the creaking of timber, the scratching of rats, the distant pulse of artillery. You take it all in, and then you make a quiet choice. You will not sleep tonight. Not deeply. Not really. Instead, you end the day. Not with dreams, but with presence. You stare into the dark, feeling the weight of the earth above and around you, and you remain still. Outside, the sky is just beginning to gray. Dawn is on its way, and you will be ready. Not because you're rested, but because you must be. For now, the night is done, and that is enough. What you've just experienced is but a single day, one ordinary day among many during the long, bitter stretch of the First World War. From reveille to night patrol, the routine played out with a grim familiarity for the millions who served in the trenches. And while the details may vary, different sectors, different battalions, different faces, the core experience remained hauntingly consistent. 4 years. Over 1,500 days of grinding endurance. No single patrol or shelling defines the war. It was the unbroken accumulation of these moments, of cold tea, foul latrines, cracked heels, and comrades' names shouted over the din, that shaped the soul of the war and scarred a generation. For the men on the Western Front, life was claustrophobic and earthbound. The trench was both shelter and prison, dug deep into the soil of Belgium and France. Its walls, made of sandbags and rotting planks, often crumbled in the rain. The duckboard sank underfoot, swallowed by mud. Days blurred into one another, marked only by roll call, mail delivery, or the timing of the next artillery barrage. There was no glamour here. War for the frontline soldier was not parades or strategies. It was routine and rot. It was the endless scraping of shovels and sludge, the stink of rotting corpses wedged in collapsed dugouts, the smell of mustard gas still clinging to the air, the sound of lice being crushed between fingernails, the taste of metal from water stored too long in tin, and always the fear. Not the sharp spike of fear one might expect, but a steady, grinding dread. Shells didn't always whistle before they hit. Sniper fire came without warning. One moment a friend might be speaking, and the next his helmet rolled down the duckboards without him. Many soldiers feared death less than they feared being maimed, blinded, disfigured, sent home in pieces. Even the moments of stillness, the quiet days, were filled with anxiety. The silence could be worse than the shelling, for it left room for thought, and thought, in such a place, could be dangerous. It might turn to the letters unread, the bodies unburied, the friends lost to the mud. Psychological trauma was not yet fully understood, but it was deeply felt. They called it shell shock then. Today, we might call it post-traumatic stress disorder. Whatever the name, it lingered in the blank stares of men rocked by months of bombardment, in the trembling hands that couldn't hold a pen, in the sudden screams that shattered quiet nights. Conditions were rarely sanitary. Waterlogged trenches bred illness, dysentery, influenza, and trench foot were constant companions. Gangrene set in with shocking speed. A wound that might have been survivable at home could prove fatal within hours in the trenches. The British soldier, known as Tommy, often coped through dark humor and stubborn stoicism. He gave sarcastic nicknames to deadly places: Suicide Corner, Hellfire Alley, Plug Street. He sang songs in the muck and scratched graffiti into trench walls. He wrote poems, crude or beautiful, and passed time carving initials into rifle butts or tin cups. Many soldiers were volunteers, answering the call out of patriotism, pressure, or the promise of glory. By war's end, most illusions had been shattered. They had not expected a war of attrition, a conflict defined not by sweeping cavalry charges, but by grinding, positional warfare where gains were measured in yards and losses in thousands. Battles like the Somme, Passchendaele, and Verdun became etched into history not for their strategic brilliance, but for their human cost. At the Somme, over 1 million men were wounded or killed. Entire battalions were wiped out within hours. On the first day alone, British forces suffered nearly 60,000 casualties. And yet the war dragged on, because it had to. Orders came from far behind the lines, from men in clean uniforms who spoke in terms of objectives and morale. But for the soldier on the front, the war wasn't about maps or treaties. It was about surviving until the next meal, holding the line until the next relief, watching the sky for flares, listening for the click of a rat, the breath of a sniper, the whistle that meant over the top. There were moments of humanity too, brief and surreal. A letter from home that mentioned snow falling on the village green, a shared cigarette with a prisoner. The famous Christmas truce of 1914, when guns fell silent and carols rose from the trenches, reminded soldiers that the men on the other side were not monsters but mirrors. Still, peace was always temporary. When the truce ended, the shelling resumed with double the ferocity. By the time the armistice was signed on November 11, 1918, over 20 million soldiers and civilians had died. An entire generation of young men was lost or maimed. Towns were emptied. Fields were flattened. Europe itself had been reshaped. The war had not ended all wars. But for those who served in the trenches, it had ended their innocence. Many never spoke of it again, not because they forgot, but because they remembered too clearly. They carried it with them, in limp and in silence, in nightmares and in scars. Their diaries, letters, and accounts remain today as fragile windows into a time when humanity dug itself into the earth and fought from holes, surrounded by wire and fear. This story, this single day in the life of a soldier, is not an exception. It is a portrait of the ordinary within the extraordinary, a window into what millions endured for days, weeks, years. And yet, even in this cold and endless mud, there was resilience. In writing a diary by candlelight, in greasing one's feet against rock, in crawling through no man's land and returning alive, in finishing the day, not with rest, but with presence. That perhaps is the soldier's quiet defiance, not to triumph over war, but to endure it,